Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here, and I've really with pleasure followed the discussions in the morning, and I hope to give you some replies and insights on our end now in the afternoon. As Tim said, it was prompting me, Xavier's position today, presenting us boldly robotaxis in the US, that I asked Tim to actually update my slides over lunch, and I want to start with those updated slides the very first 2 minutes, because I think that there is sometimes or partially a mismatch of understanding and perspective. Why we are doing all this is because of climate change. It's because of the cities we are living in. It's because of we want to have a change. It's not a techno-loving story. It is not being bold and fast and performant and sexy and so on. It is really because we have a societal need. And I want to focus first on a multidimensional assessment for EasyMile, as I said after my preamble. Go then a bit on to, which is quite nice actually, and perfectly matching into the session we have had two before actually, status and outlook regarding policy. The third element is I would like to motivate why we are engaging with Pave Europe and why public acceptance and also bringing out the right messages in the next 10 years is so important. And then finally, to conclude what Tim entry-wise said, why we don't have robo-taxis yet. And before going into that first chapter, I would like to ask you the question, guiding question. Do we design systems for masses, focusing on climate change? Or do we design systems for individuals in cities? And when we speak about our technology, and I'm representing EasyMile, as you see here on the logo, I'm focusing on transporting masses and focusing on climate change. I'm not doing a 10% or 15 or 20% share of the market, individuals transporting in cities. And also we are respecting geospatially that the world doesn't look the same. You might have noticed that we have had a global expansion strategy over years, been active in Australia and many other countries around the globe, and now we are focusing mainly on Europe because we see how tough it is to make specific markets. But we have to be successful if we want to be a European company successful in autonomous driving. And that's why I entered these three elements here. To me, it is the mix of safety, or the order between safety, performance, and costs. And you have two alternatives. A, you accept fatalities in your learning curve as an autonomous vehicles supplier. B, you do American pony car style performance optimization. And C, you just invest whatever you can get on the market, maximum high-tech sensor technology, and you don't care about costs. Or, and that is what is EasyMile, we work commonly on strong policies and we try to achieve the conformities. B, we do have a system, we intend to have a system which is accessible for everyone and which is representing the 21st century in terms of autonomous vehicle technology. And C, and some of you might know, especially our clients here, winning public tenders on price criteria. I wonder, speaking to Xavier now, how many of those robo-taxis have the chance to go through a European tender process? This needs to be, when looking at this big why, this needs to be put in place, and this is why I designed my second slide to show you a bit the differences. Because somewhere else we can have pony car discussions, performance-driven, costs as I showed it, and having fatalities in the safety. Or we do it as I showed it to you, commonly strong policies, focusing first on safety, going over costs because otherwise you can't open markets, and then, yes, sure, it's also on us to extend the performance. But think about that order. For me, it's a triangle, and you can actually put every autonomous vehicle entity, company, into that type of triangle. And every year, every decade, this will be evolving and ever-changing. And that's a bit the discussion we're having, and so this is why you see my leading question for that slide. If we fail with that, we have seen that with so many other digital companies in the last 20 years, we will have just an autonomous vehicle market driven by an American philosophy, or we manage to have a strong European technology backbone. And the latter is what I'm working on. So if I jump through EasyMile 2023, we can speak about perception, the acrobat in a hailstorm. We can go on the ISO compliance on technological building blocks. We can speak about what is actually in Terhills the case, a perfect match between what the ODD can deliver today and what is requested by the operating area. We can speak about the level of automation. When do you responsibly decide to take a decision and which decision is out of you, what you don't want to take? I'm often getting the question, when do you level 5? We don't do level 5, we're focusing on level 4, and we do it very well. And then we have the approval process on public ground. That is what I want to focus in the second part of my presentation, actually, to come from that exemption permit case-to-case solution finding to a systematized way of approving technology in Europe. Deployment, just to keep it complete, that picture, because of those exemption permits, we have a very manual way of deploying technology. When you want to scale, you need to have a bold approach, automated deployment for large areas, being able to be operated on demand then, for instance. When we speak about regulations and policy, think about when you really don't have a service attendant on board anymore, what is the processes around? So that means it is not just taking out the service attendant. It is really to think about everything that covers the operations, the performance, the KPIs, the success criteria for your operations, and so on. So fully driverlessly means much more than just taking out a service attendant. And last but not least, I touched upon it on the slide before, the cost of technology and the societal adoption. Yeah, and I will have also the topic societal adoption in my last 8.5 minutes with you. For the next 5 minutes, let's focus on that triangle. ISO compliance, approval processes, fully driverless operation. Status and outlook, policy and legislation in Europe. I tried to make it a bit like a turning wheel, because I wanted to show you this is not a done deal, just because Germany has started, apparently, I don't know if you see it, it's this white on green here. Apparently the Germans have started now doing something in that direction, and on European level, the ADS regulation was mentioned before, there is something. But I want to motivate that as we don't have yet a clear picture how autonomous driving 2035 in Europe will look like, the policy has always to jump in the delta mode. That means we now, given best visibility, try a policy to what we know. And then the next policy adaptation process needs to come and so on. So it is really an upward falling, so to say, of a stairway. And let's start over here. Yes, for type approvals, ADS regulation is in place. The addendums have been written. But let's look at the yellow one. For the supervision system, the green one, the Germans tell us we need a maneuver clearance catalog, specifically selectable maneuvers, which you select on a screen, which is not your operator's screen, which is like an escalating screen that you check it, and then a specific maneuver is released. This is not yet defined on European level. So worst case, what can happen, and that's why it's that turning wheel that we have in many European countries, different national legislations, for instance, for the supervision system, but it is not yet enough harmonized on European level itself. But as it is an implementing regulation, it should have the, so to say, the leading role in the context, which is for us as a techno company always difficult because you can't end up in having 30 different approaches, so to say. We would like to have a streamlined approach here. In addition to the techno part up here, we do have also the conveyance of passengers. Specific countries have specific regulations how to convey passengers. And last but not least, the liability discussion, which is often forgotten a bit. We don't have the same situation like a tier one providing components or competence to an OEM. It is basically that we are the new nervous system. So the question is, how do you distribute liability between the entities? I thought we have spoken before, we didn't, but it might feel like I need to look at his name, Christoph Rombel. You said risk minimum maneuvers. That is for the project SafeStream we are conducting in Germany, just to give you a glimpse on how complex things can get. Starting with a driving task, self-monitoring the system in itself, deactivating the ADS if necessary. All this needs to be validated. Validatable, approved, approvable by a third party, an ISA. This is just one element. So the fully driverless era to come, and the Germans name it AFGBV, that is the abbreviation for the regulation in Germany. it is a question of validation for us. So we also need internally to ramp up massively to coping with policy and regulation, our validation mechanisms, testing catalogs, how we deal with all that. To do so, on the German end, we do have a project named SafeStream, which is, as you see, funded by a federal ministry. It is, with 16 million euros, a massive piece for us. It is excellent to have, with the right partners, a chance to develop the fully driverless system in compliance to the regulation in place. It takes place in a couple of cities, Monheim and Kelheim, on-demand operation, line-based operation, small town, larger distance. We have actually 30 kilometers deployment. Just put that in context. If you have 30 kilometers deployment, all the traffic scenarios to validate all of them fully driverlessly, it will be a massive piece of work in the next years. I jump over it just because of time. Let's highlight here, just when you think about fully driverless operations, let's highlight here operational questions. We spoke quickly about the maneuver clearance catalog, for instance, or local action plans and the KPI catalog to make a performance measurement of your supervision strategy, but also to go into what we had on the slide earlier, the ISO compliance on the one side, or to think about the safety critical embedded system, which you need because this is also the ISO entry door for you to have the specific ISO level. Or if we speak about the maneuverability of it, the system in itself, the supervision system here, having a supervision API which is adaptable to so many fleet operators that you don't start over and over again having to so many different fleet operators new APIs to construct. So, I agree that we have a very nice match of ODD here with Terhills. Let's say that this is potentially New York driving Manhattan downtown. You find down here the complexity of the use case and up here the safety integrity level. And I would like to motivate with that slide that just because someone claims he is fully driverless, this is not necessarily fully driverless. This is fully driverless for a very specific segment of a part of a city, of a part of as a segment of a route, so to say. Don't be distracted by what media tells you in terms of, we take out the service attendant. The quality we are having with Terhills together in terms of having a safety case, a massive document being studied in detail, that is what required to make us step by step through that large picture to finally, whenever, really come to the highest possible safety cases, so to say, to manage also very complex intersections and so on. A couple of core elements for that here, and as you know, I want to come to the technological acceptance topic now. Technology acceptance needs to be balanced out with the business development. It's a citizen topic. It's not a techno topic. Second, harmonization. We spoke about it. There is a UN level. There is a European Commission level. Type approvability. That is something we need to put far more into our control now because as of today, this EZ10, what you see out there, has been type approvable. Interestingly, just to give you insights here, we had the discussion federal level in Belgium apparently. On German end, we do have a super authority on top level, but the operating area definition is part on federal level. So there is also between different authorities now new dialogues to be created which haven't been there, which is also new dialogues always take time. And last but not least, to kind of conclude regarding the robotaxi question, we do want to serve masses of people. We don't want to have just for a specific, like a car sharer is searching spots in the city and says, okay, here I can operate because it's profitable, or here it's profitable for me. That's not the way how our mobility may look like. We want to have very good serving mobility systems. So we may not end in Europe in having robotaxi mentality like cherry on the cake, I do my autonomous driving where I want. To cope with all that, what I showed you, just really rushing through the slides, that's why we are engaging as a founding member within Pave Europe, together with Waymo and Mobileye, by the way. I don't have enough time to speak the overall mission. We can do that afterwards if you're interested in. But to me, it is actually to think a bit about what is the everyday life for a European citizen 2035 with autonomous vehicles, and what do we need to do today to speak about that type of integration of autonomous vehicles. Currently, we are building up regular memberships, contributors, building up the first working groups to really get this type of discussion started. So, last question here. Why we don't have the robotaxis? I think I answered with my entry slides already a bit it's only my personal perspective here. But I know it's a large slide, but please take your time, read through it, it makes sense. When you start on society level, what you want is comfort. You want demand-oriented seat and cargo capacity combined with renewable energy. You want to have a participative approach. You want to have people understand what you do, learn with them. This makes potentially the change in modal split, where everybody is waiting for that people just don't buy cars but use public transport. Traffic-wise, we want to have increased safety. As safe as humans is not enough. We want to have more safety than as safe as humans. And we want to have a systematic integrability. And that leads then to those minimum idle times of fleets. A taxi value, 37%, best taxi, occupation rate. Why not achieving that with robotaxis or automated shuttles as well? So, only with that you achieve the CO2 carbon dioxide emissions. Otherwise, you fail in the traffic sector. Third, technology. ODD topic, we had it with Terhills. Supervision performance, you don't want that a simple plastic bag is stopping your autonomously, fully driverless driven vehicle for 1 hour because no one is there to take away the plastic bag. System compliance to standards and regulations, the focus of my speech here. Let's say we manage everything, we take out the service attendant. And last but not least, you want the companies to be profitable. Because we just can't just sail on funding. We need to be profitable as a company. Standardized components are needed. Sustainable supply chains are needed. That means much, right? I'm just going through it quickly, but think about what is a sustainable supply chain for an autonomous vehicle system. And at the end, fleet operations, scalable products. And this can lead to the profitability. And only if you comply, as Europe, to these 4 columns, I named it a bit of vision, then we have the chance to really have a picture for autonomous vehicle technology. And yes, this is one project, it is super nice, but we need to be in that big picture successful together. And just to widen the picture for EasyMile, we don't just only speak about one specific passenger transportation vehicle, we do have a portfolio to manage with different use cases. And the questions we just had in the last 15 minutes are basically kind of the same for each of those vehicle categories. Thank you.